behind from Bennett and Rafinha, the volley! It's brilliant from Barcelona! Goes outside the boot towards him, could come for Rafinha! But Barcelona have given themselves every chance of progressing. They've beaten Paris Saint-Germain in this first leg away from home by 3-2. A massive result for Xavi's men.
For years, Barcelona have been known for playing a certain style. Pressing, possession-based football. That has brought them fame and success, but in more recent times, hasn't been paying out the same way. The team has been poor and proven to be incapable of playing that way against the best teams over the past several years. From what we saw this week against PSG, it's clear that they aren't playing that way anymore, which is why I wouldn't say they're back, because that would infer that they're playing like they used to, because what Chavi has them doing is much, much different than that. However, this form of play isn't new to Barcelona. Xavi's had them playing similar tactics for this entire season. More or less the exact same tactics that they were playing when everyone was calling for Chavi to leave.
From one day to another or 3 weeks to another, he didn't become a better coach than he was before. I always thought that Chavi was a good coach, and he is a good coach. This longevity matters. You can see it with Mikel Arteta. For 2 years, wasn't great at Arsenal. You give him time, he built something. Xavi already won the league, by the way. Nothing has changed. It's also up to the teams and what you're doing. But what I'm seeing right now in the past 2 years, the amount of youngsters that came through with him, and he's not scared of putting them. When Klopp does it with Liverpool, everyone is like, oh, he's not scared to throw youngsters in. Xavi is the same. He was good before, he's still good. So now all the very best to keep him.
Being the FC Barcelona manager is a very tough gig, as there's only a few things that you have to do right, and there's a lot that you can do very wrong. And with Xavi playing this new style, it was very hard on him when the team was not performing well at all. This squad is almost certainly training the exact same way they were earlier this season, under the same exact teachings Xavi gave them earlier, but the players have begun to respond differently to Xavi's teaching. And maybe more importantly, over the season, Xavi has wholeheartedly embraced whenever players have shown new sides of themselves to him, with 2 instances standing out maybe more than anything else. Cubarsí playing at center back. It's not easy for coaches to take risks on young players and put them into the first team dynamics, especially when they're either under scrutiny or in a title race and stress levels are high. But Cubarsí proved to Xavi that he deserved a spot because Xavi was giving him opportunities to show him that, and Xavi put him into the first team and has basically been a starter ever since. It's a fact that this 17-year-old's ball-playing ability is unrivaled in this Barcelona side, but maybe even more important is his confidence in his defending. He is decisive in his tackles and maybe a bit aggressive at times, but that aggression almost always pays off. Cubarsí is great and will be great for a long time because Xavi gave him the opportunity in this squad now, just like he gave another player a different opportunity at the same time. Christensen playing as CDM. Even before the season started, there were rumors that Christensen could play as a CDM, but the entire first half, we didn't see any of that, and people like me came out complaining, criticizing Xavi for not trying him there. But in retrospect, I think I was wrong. I think Xavi was trying him there, he just wasn't good enough yet. I think Xavi was giving him the minutes in practice, but in practice, he wasn't there, clearly on the ball, because even when Xavi eventually warmed up to the idea and put Christensen in, he still wasn't good on the ball. So imagine how poor he was well before that as he learned that role. Of course, he didn't get any time then, he just wasn't good enough. But now, he is remarkable. Not only is Christensen better on the ball than he was when he first debuted as a CDM, but he is infinitely better at the defensive responsibilities of that role than anyone else in this squad is, and maybe more than Busquets was last season. The strength of Christensen defensively gives Frankie de Jong and Pedri the freedom to move the ball around and create some chaos in a way that would not have been possible if they also had to worry a lot more about their defensive responsibility, the way they had to earlier in the season when Oriol Romeu played there, or even when Frankie de Jong was playing there as well. Christensen was also key in this PSG game because he came in at a time where Barcelona were losing the game a little bit. PSG had just scored 2 goals, and Barca were beginning to struggle a little bit defensively with Barcola on. But Christensen came in, shored up that midfield, and helped defensively against the onslaught that PSG were committing when they tried to create something. But just because Xavi has embraced the new things that some players have showed him, doesn't exactly mean a whole lot has changed outside of that. Just as this Barca side showed earlier this season, and honestly I complained about a lot earlier in the year, this team is still not at all a high-pressing side. PSG were able to play around them very easily. Now, sometimes Barca do press a little bit more in other games against teams that are considerably less competent with the ball than PSG were this week. However, the reason Xavi and Barcelona are able to get away with this is because they really are strong defensively. Xavi relies a lot on his backline to defend well, and against Paris, that's exactly what they did. They had to withstand a ton of pressure from Mbappe, Ousmane Dembele, Nuno Mendes, and then eventually Barcola on their way to that victory. However, they created a lot of chances as well. Barcelona had more expected goals and more big chances created than PSG had that entire game, even though PSG had 60% possession. Paris had so much of the ball, and yet they were able to create only a few clear-cut chances, while Barcelona were able to fairly easily jump on the counter and create great opportunities to score, and they eventually scored. And that is all thanks to the tactics that Xavi has been playing for very much so most of this season. Xavi's Barca side play a midfielder up next to Lewandowski and have that player, usually Gundogan, and one of the wingers make powerful runs off of Lewa in behind. That's exactly how Rafinha scored the beautiful second goal on the delightful assist from Pedri, and also how they have created so many chances throughout this season. But because you are pushing one of your midfielders all the way up against the back line, it makes it harder to play through the middle because you're going to have less men, especially against a good press, like we saw against PSG. And it makes it even harder to do that when Lewandowski is off his game with his first touch and his link-up play is very poor, like it was for much of the beginning of this season. Without Lewandowski operating well in the link-up play, it makes it all much more difficult, but against Paris, he played very well. When Lewandowski was struggling earlier this year, we relied a lot on Lamine Yamal to be that spark, help us create, but yesterday, it was kind of the opposite. Lamine Yamal was very much so not having his best game, and he's 16, we understand that, but this Barca side were still able to create so many very decent chances even without him performing that well. They created a lot of chances on the left through Cancelo and through the middle with Gundo and Rafinha, and that succeeded for the first time in a pretty long time. We've seen this team get suffocated pretty easily by teams that press very well. That was happening to them a lot earlier in the season, and part of the reason why they conceded so many goals early on in matches. Teams had enough at the beginning of matches to press their lives out, and Barca struggled to move around that, but against PSG, we didn't see any of that. They were able to play a solid match without incredible ball movement. But one of the main reasons this team is working so well together is that they've just figured each other out. They've been trying those over-the-top balls like crazy this entire campaign, and since January, they have finally found a rhythm that has led to a lot of goals off of those plays. These players are working together in a way we haven't seen this entire year, and that was critical to making Xavi's tactics work really well. The same tactics, again, that people were criticizing him for and calling him to leave. So many people in my comment section after the Paris match were saying that Donnarumma gave Barcelona this win. And though I would argue he definitely could have had a better match, I think Barcelona deserved this win, whether he made those mistakes or not. They created the better chances. They had the better opportunities, and I think at the very least, they deserved that win. They countered PSG's advances very well and were able to eventually finish enough of those chances to win while also defending even better. And that is exactly what they haven't been able to do this entire season. That balance between their finishing abilities and their defensive abilities has been out of whack this entire year. Either one was off or the other one was, and that held them back in the league and in the Champions League from looking great, and that kept expectations for this team very low. The failures of this squad helped them keep this underdog status and fly under the radar a little bit this season. However, it's going to be very hard for them to keep that status or mentality going because Barcelona fans are starting to feel a certain way a certain way we haven't really felt since the catastrophic capitulation at Liverpool in the spring of 2019. We are excited, and I can see the players feeling a similar way too, which I would argue is a very good thing, actually. I've spoken about it a little bit before, but Barcelona are pathetic in the Champions League and have been for a very long time. But now, they've proven that they can win a knockout stage away match. That is a huge step for this side, and no matter what happens for the rest of this season, this team will be good very soon. Whether it's next week, next month, or next year, the building blocks are there, and Barcelona's almost back, and it's all thanks to Chavi. Or at least some of it is. But not everything is perfect just yet. So buckle up, boys. We got a lot of football ahead, and it's going to be very interesting. Now, jump on over to this video to learn about the crazy turnarounds that Koundé has had this season, or click on this video to check out whatever YouTube thinks you'll be interested in. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Visca Barça. Peace.